the only manifestation video you need? What if the reason your desires have seemed so far away is not because you are unlucky, unworthy, or incapable of creating change? What if the greatest obstacle has been the story you keep telling yourself when no one else is listening? This moment can be the beginning of something different, not because a single video will magically transform your entire life overnight, but because one powerful realization can change the way you see yourself, your future, and the possibilities available to you. The life you want does not begin with chasing the world for permission. It begins when you become aware of the power of your attention, your imagination, your beliefs, and the assumptions you repeatedly accept as true. For too long, you may have been searching outside yourself for the answer. You have looked for signs, waited for perfect timing, repeated affirmations without truly believing them, and wondered why the things you desire seem to happen so easily for everyone else. You may have asked, "When will it be my turn?" But today, I want you to pause and consider a different question. Who would you become if you stopped identifying with the version of yourself who is always waiting? Because the moment you stop seeing yourself as someone who is constantly missing something, you begin opening the door to a completely different way of living. Your mind is always telling a story. Every day you are silently making assumptions about love, money, success, relationships, opportunities, and your own worth. You may assume that life is difficult. You may assume that people always leave. You may assume that success belongs to someone else. You may assume that your dreams are possible someday, but not now. And without realizing it, these assumptions can influence your emotions, decisions, confidence, behavior, and the possibilities you are willing to pursue. This is why real transformation does not begin by desperately forcing the outer world to change. It begins by changing the inner world which you repeatedly view everything. You do not need to become obsessed. You do not need to spend every waking moment searching for proof. You do not need to convince the entire universe that you deserve something. The deeper work is much simpler and much more powerful. You must learn to become familiar with a new possibility. You must learn to think from a different identity. Instead of constantly saying, "Why don't I have it?" begin asking yourself, "What would change inside me if I truly believed a better life was possible?" That question can become the doorway to a new chapter. Imagine no longer waking up and immediately remembering everything that is wrong. Imagine refusing to allow yesterday's disappointments to become today's identity. Imagine looking at your circumstances without allowing them to define your future. You are allowed to outgrow the story that has kept you small. You are allowed to release the belief that you must struggle endlessly before life can become beautiful. You are allowed to believe that a new beginning can start with a new decision. This is your invitation to stop waiting for the perfect sign and become more intentional with the direction of your mind. Let this be the moment you stop feeding fear with your attention. Let this be the moment you stop rehearsing rejection before it happens. Let this be the moment you stop calling yourself powerless simply because your current circumstances have not yet caught up with your deepest vision. The only question is this: are you ready to stop repeating the life you don't want and start consciously choosing the story you are willing to live? Take a deep breath. Leave the old story behind just for this moment. Open your mind, open your imagination, and as you continue listening, remember this. Your next chapter may begin the moment you decide that the person you have been is not the person you are required to remain. Your assumption creates your experience. Everything you repeatedly experience in life is influenced by the meaning you give to yourself, to other people, and to the world around you. Before you change your circumstances, you often have to examine the assumptions you have been carrying silently. An assumption is simply something you repeatedly accept as true. You may never say it out loud, but deep inside you may believe that love is difficult, money is hard to earn, opportunities always pass you by, or success belongs to other people. These ideas can become so familiar that you stop questioning them. They become the invisible script behind decisions, emotions, expectations, and reactions. This is why transformation begins with awareness. You cannot change a story that you do not realize you are constantly repeating. Think about the assumptions you make every day. When someone does not reply to your message, what do you immediately assume? When an opportunity does not work out, what do you tell yourself? When you see someone else succeeding, do you assume that you could also create something meaningful? Or do you immediately believe that you are behind? Your assumptions shape your emotional responses, and your emotional responses influence your behavior. If you assume rejection is inevitable, you may become guarded before anyone has actually rejected you. If you assume failure is waiting for you, you may hesitate, procrastinate, or avoid taking meaningful action. But when you begin to question those automatic beliefs, you create space for a new possibility. The most important shift is learning that your current circumstances are not always a final definition of who you are. A difficult season does not mean you are destined to struggle forever. A past rejection does not prove that you are unlovable. A financial setback does not mean abundance is impossible. A delayed opportunity does not mean your dreams have disappeared. Yet, many people continue to carry old experiences into every new moment, expecting the future to repeat the past. They wake up each day remembering what went wrong, rehearsing what they fear, and strengthening an identity they secretly wish to escape. The first step toward change is deciding that your history can inform you without imprisoning you. Begin asking yourself, what am I assuming about my life right now? Pay attention to the sentences that appear automatically in your mind. Things never work out for me. I'm always too late. Nobody truly understands me. I can never get ahead. These thoughts may feel true because they have been repeated so many times, but familiarity is not proof. A repeated thought can become a habit, and a habit can feel like reality even when it is only one interpretation of reality. You have the ability to pause and choose a more empowering perspective. This does not mean pretending that problems do not exist. It does not mean ignoring responsibilities or sitting still while hoping everything magically changes. It means refusing to let temporary circumstances become permanent conclusions. You can acknowledge a problem while still believing that a solution is possible. You can experience disappointment without deciding that your entire future is disappointing. You can face uncertainty without assuming that uncertainty means disaster. Your power begins when you stop allowing every difficult moment to write the next chapter for you. Start creating new assumptions deliberately. Instead of constantly expecting rejection, practice believing that you are capable of building healthy connections. Instead of assuming opportunities are scarce, become more open to learning, growing, and recognizing possibilities. Instead of defining yourself by your past, begin seeing yourself as someone who can evolve. The goal is not to repeat empty words while secretly remaining attached to fear. Goal is to gradually become familiar with a stronger inner story. Remember, your assumptions influence what you focus on, how you interpret events, and what actions you believe are available to you. Change does not always happen in one dramatic moment. Sometimes it begins quietly, with one new thought. Maybe my life can become different. Maybe I do not have to keep expecting the same pain. Maybe I can choose a new story. And when you repeatedly return to that possibility, you begin to see yourself differently. That is where a new experience can begin, not in desperate chasing, but in the powerful decision to stop assuming that yesterday must become tomorrow. Your inner story matters. Choose one that gives your future room to grow. Stop chasing and start becoming. One of the greatest reasons people feel exhausted in the process of manifestation is because they spend too much of their energy chasing what they desire instead of becoming the person who feels internally prepared to receive it. They chase love because they believe they are incomplete without it. They chase money because they believe their current circumstances define their worth. They chase success because they fear being left behind. But the more they chase from a place of desperation, the more attention they give to the feeling of not having. Their mind keeps asking, where is it? Why hasn't it happened? What am I doing wrong? And every question becomes another reminder of absence. The real shift begins when you stop allowing what you want to control how you see yourself. Instead of constantly trying to force life to give you proof that you are valuable, begin becoming someone who recognizes their value before the proof arrives. Becoming is an inner transformation. It means asking yourself, who would I be if I no longer identified with lack? How would you think if you trusted yourself more? How would you speak if you believed your voice mattered? How would you move through the world if you stopped expecting every good thing to disappear? This does not mean pretending to be someone else. It means allowing yourself to grow beyond the identity created by disappointment, fear, rejection, and limitation. You are not required to remain the version of yourself that was shaped during your most difficult moments. You can learn new patterns. You can build new habits. You can choose healthier expectations. You can become more confident, more disciplined, more peaceful, and more open to opportunity. Chasing says, I need this before I can feel whole. Becoming says, I am building a life and identity that can hold what I desire. Chasing looks outside for constant validation. Becoming develops stability within. Chasing panics when results are delayed. Becoming continues to grow even during uncertainty. This is the difference between desperation and inner direction. When your entire emotional state depends on receiving one specific outcome, you can easily lose yourself in waiting, checking, worrying, and overthinking. But when you make your personal growth the foundation, your life continues moving forward, regardless of how quickly circumstances change. If you desire love, do not spend every day asking why someone has not chosen you. Begin asking whether you are choosing yourself through healthy boundaries, self-respect, honesty, and emotional growth. If you desire success, do not only imagine applause, develop the skills, discipline, courage, and consistency that success often requires. If you desire financial improvement, do not merely focus on the amount of money you wish to receive. Become more informed, responsible, creative, and willing to recognize opportunities. Inner transformation and practical action can work together. A new self-concept changes what you believe is possible, while intentional action helps you participate in creating meaningful results. The person you are becoming matters because your identity influences your choices. Someone who sees themselves as permanently defeated may give up when challenges appear. Someone who begins seeing themselves as resilient may look for another strategy. Someone who believes they are unworthy may accept poor treatment. Someone who recognizes their worth is more likely to create boundaries. Your beliefs are not magical commands that guarantee every event will unfold exactly as you imagine, but they strongly influence the way you interpret life and respond to it. That is why becoming a stronger version of yourself is so powerful. It changes the way you participate in your own story. Stop measuring every day by whether you received what you wanted. Measure it by who you are becoming. Did you become calmer? Did you challenge an old fear? Did you make one courageous decision? Did you stop speaking against your own future? Did you take one step toward the life you desire? These changes may appear small, but they are evidence that you are no longer standing still. The life you want may require a version of you who thinks differently, acts differently, and no longer abandons themselves whenever things become uncertain. So today, release the exhausting need to chase every outcome. You do not need to run after life begging it to notice you. Become more intentional, become more aware, become more disciplined. Become someone who can imagine possibility without immediately surrendering to doubt. Let your desires inspire you, but do not let them become chains around your identity. The greatest transformation may not be the moment you finally receive what you asked for. It may be the moment you realize that while you were waiting for life to change, you had the power to begin changing yourself, and that becoming was the beginning of everything. Your imagination is your greatest tool. Your imagination is one of the most powerful tools you possess because every meaningful change in life begins, in some form, with the ability to see beyond what is currently in front of you. Before a person changes careers, builds a relationship, creates a business, develops a skill, or transforms their lifestyle, there is usually an inner moment when they imagine something different. They allow themselves to consider a possibility that does not yet fully exist in their present circumstances. That is where transformation begins. Your imagination gives you the ability to move beyond the limitations of the moment and explore a future that may be different from your past. Yet many people use this incredible ability against themselves. Instead of imagining success, they imagine failure. Instead of rehearsing confidence, they rehearse embarrassment. Instead of seeing possibilities, they repeatedly picture everything going wrong. They create painful scenes in their minds and then wonder why fear feels so familiar. The mind becomes trained by repetition, which is why you must become more conscious of the pictures and stories you repeatedly entertain. Your imagination should not become a prison where you escape reality. It should become a space where you develop clarity, courage, and direction. Close your eyes and ask yourself a simple question. If I truly believed that my life could improve, what would I allow myself to imagine? Maybe you see yourself feeling peaceful in a healthy relationship. Maybe you imagine completing a goal you once believed was impossible. Maybe you see yourself waking up with purpose, confidence, and gratitude. Do not immediately attack the vision with questions about how, when, or whether you deserve it. For a moment, simply allow yourself to experience the possibility. The purpose is not to guarantee that every imagined detail will unfold exactly as pictured. The purpose is to expand your inner sense of what you are capable of pursuing and becoming. When you repeatedly imagine a better version of your life, you begin noticing the difference between your desired direction and your current patterns. This awareness can influence your choices. If you imagine yourself becoming healthier, you may become more aware of the habits that support your energy. If you imagine yourself confident, you may recognize moments when fear is making decisions for you. If you imagine meaningful success, you may begin identifying skills you need to develop. Imagination becomes powerful when it inspires both an inner shift and practical participation. You are not simply dreaming, you are allowing a vision to influence the person you are becoming. There is also power in using imagination to revise the emotional meaning you have attached to your past. You cannot physically erase what happened, but you can change the way you continue carrying it. Perhaps you have replayed a painful conversation 1,000 times. Perhaps you still imagine what you should have said or constantly relive a moment of rejection. Instead of repeatedly feeding the wound with the same mental scene, imagine yourself moving forward with wisdom, strength, and peace. Imagine releasing the need to remain emotionally trapped inside one chapter. Your imagination can help you create a healthier relationship with your memories by reminding you that the past is an experience you have lived, not an identity you must permanently inhabit. The key is consistency. A single positive thought may not immediately erase years of negative conditioning, but repetition creates familiarity. When you repeatedly return to an empowering inner picture, you gradually weaken the automatic habit of expecting the worst. You begin giving your mind another direction. Each time fear says nothing will change, you can pause and imagine a possibility where you respond differently. Each time doubt says you are not capable, you can picture yourself learning, growing, and taking the next step. You do not have to force yourself to feel perfect. You simply have to become willing to stop giving all your imagination to your fears. Equate a simple practice. Spend a few quiet minutes each day imagining yourself experiencing the emotional qualities you desire: peace, confidence, gratitude, love, freedom, purpose, or security. Make the scene natural rather than complicated. Feel what it would be like to trust yourself. Feel what it would be like to stop expecting disaster. Feel what it would be like to believe that your efforts can matter. Then carry that inner direction into your day through your words and actions. Your imagination is always working. The question is whether you are using it consciously or allowing old fears to use it for you. The future is not created by imagination alone, but imagination can change what you believe is possible, what you prepare for, and what you are willing to pursue. So stop treating your inner world as something meaningless. Protect it, direct it, expand it. Give yourself permission to see a life beyond your current limitations. Because sometimes the first evidence that a new chapter is possible is not something you see with your eyes. It is something you first dare to see within your mind. Release the old story. There comes a moment in every transformation when you must decide whether you are going to continue living from the story of who you used to be or begin identifying with the person you are becoming. The old story can feel incredibly powerful because it is built from real memories, painful experiences, disappointments, failures, rejection, and moments when life did not unfold the way you hoped. You may have been hurt, overlooked, criticized, or made to feel that your dreams were unrealistic. Those experiences may have happened, and acknowledging them honestly is important. But there is a difference between remembering the past and allowing the past to become your permanent identity. The old story becomes a prison when you repeatedly use yesterday's experiences as proof that tomorrow must look exactly the same. You begin saying, "This always happens to me. People never change. I always fail. Or my life will never get better." Without realizing it, you are carrying an old chapter into every new possibility. Releasing the old story does not mean pretending nothing happened. It does not mean denying your emotions or forcing yourself to be positive about painful experiences. It means deciding that your past will no longer have unlimited authority over your future. You can learn from what happened without becoming emotionally loyal to it. You can acknowledge a mistake without calling yourself a failure. You can recognize that someone hurt you without believing that everyone will hurt you. You can experience financial difficulty without permanently identifying as someone destined to struggle. The moment you separate your identity from your circumstances, you create space for something new. You are not the worst thing that happened to you. You are not the biggest mistake you made. You are not the rejection you experienced. You are a living, changing person with the ability to learn, adapt, heal, and choose differently. One of the reasons the old story remains powerful is repetition. You tell it to yourself every morning. You tell it through your expectations. You tell it through the way you introduce yourself to life. You may not literally speak the words, but internally you repeat them. Here we go again. Nothing works for me. I already know how this will end. These thoughts can become so automatic that you no longer notice them. But every time you repeat an old conclusion, you strengthen your emotional attachment to that identity. This is why awareness is the beginning of release. Listen carefully to suit yourself when you are afraid, disappointed, or uncertain. Ask yourself whether they are facts about your entire future or simply interpretations created by past experiences. You have the right to create a new internal narrative. Instead of saying, "I always get rejected," you might begin saying, "I am learning what healthy connection feels like." Instead of "I always fail," you can say, "I have faced setbacks and I am still capable of learning." Instead of "My past ruined everything," you can begin saying, "My past shaped me, but I still have choices about what comes next." These statements are not meant to erase reality. They are meant to stop your mind from turning temporary experiences into permanent identities. A new story becomes powerful when you begin supporting it with new thoughts, new decisions, healthier boundaries, and practical action. Sometimes releasing the old story requires grieving the version of life you expected to have. Maybe you imagined a relationship lasting forever. Maybe you believed success would arrive earlier. Maybe you thought certain people would remain by your side. Letting go can be painful because you are not only releasing what happened, you may also be releasing what you hoped would happen. Give yourself permission to feel that loss. But after you have honored the emotion, do not build a permanent home inside disappointment. Your future deserves more than a life spent repeatedly visiting the same emotional wound. Begin practicing mental release. When an old memory appears, you do not have to fight it. Notice it, breathe, and remind yourself that you are here now. When your mind tries to predict the future based entirely on the past, gently challenge the prediction. Ask, "Is this the only possible outcome?" Usually, the answer is no. There are always possibilities you cannot yet see. Your responsibility is not to know every detail of the future. Your responsibility is to stop automatically choosing fear as the narrator of your life. The old story may feel familiar, but familiar does not always mean true, healthy, or permanent. You are allowed to outgrow the identity that was built during your hardest seasons. You are allowed to surprise yourself. You are allowed to become someone who no longer expects pain simply because pain once existed. Let the past become wisdom, not a prophecy. Close the chapter with gratitude for what it taught you, compassion for the person you once were, and courage for the person you are becoming. Because the most powerful moment of transformation happens when you finally realize that you do not need permission from your past to create a different future. The old story had its chapter, but you are still holding the pen, and you can begin writing a new one today. Live with trust, consistency, and inner alignment. The final key to meaningful manifestation is learning to live with trust, consistency, and inner alignment. Many people begin with excitement, repeat positive thoughts for a few days, imagine the life they want, and then immediately return to fear when they do not see instant results. They constantly check their circumstances and ask, is it working yet? Where is my manifestation? Why hasn't anything changed? But this constant searching can pull you back into the very feeling of lack you are trying to move beyond. Real inner transformation requires patience. It requires the willingness to continue choosing a healthier mindset, even when the outside world has not immediately given you confirmation. Trust is not about guaranteeing that every desire will appear exactly when or how you expect. Trust means believing that your consistent growth, choices, and actions can move your life forward, even when you cannot yet see the complete path. Consistency is where a new way of thinking becomes stronger than the old one. You do not change years of negative expectations with one powerful moment of motivation. You change gradually by returning again and again to the mindset you want to develop. Some days you will feel confident, and other days doubt will return. That does not mean you have failed. The goal is not to become a person who never experiences fear. The goal is to become a person who no longer allows fear to make every important decision. When an old thought appears, notice it and choose whether you want to continue feeding it. When you feel discouraged, give yourself permission to rest without abandoning your vision. When progress feels slow, remember that many meaningful changes are happening beneath the surface before they become visible. In alignment means allowing your thoughts, emotions, values, and actions to move in a similar direction. If you say you want peace but constantly consume things that increase your anxiety, there is misalignment. If you say you value yourself but repeatedly accept treatment that damages your self-respect, there is misalignment. If you dream about success but refuse to develop the skills or habits connected to your goals, there is a gap between desire and participation. Alignment does not mean perfection. It means becoming honest with yourself about whether your daily choices support the future you say you want. The more your inner beliefs and practical actions work together, the more grounded and empowered you become. Trust also requires releasing the need to control every detail. Sometimes you may become so attached to one exact path that you fail to recognize another opportunity appearing in front of you. You may believe that your dream must arrive through one person, one job, one conversation, or one particular moment. But life can unfold in unexpected ways. Stay clear about the qualities and direction you desire while remaining flexible about the path. Focus on becoming prepared for opportunities instead of obsessively controlling every outcome. You cannot control every external event, but you can influence your preparation, your choices, your effort, your boundaries, and the meaning you give to challenges. One of the most powerful practices you can develop is returning to yourself. When you feel yourself becoming obsessed with signs, timelines, or other people's behavior, come back to your own center. Ask yourself what you need to do today to become healthier, wiser, calmer, or more prepared. Your life is happening now. Do not postpone your happiness until one future event arrives. Find reasons to appreciate the present while still moving toward what you desire. Build a life you respect during the process, not only after you reach the destination. Consistency also means protecting your inner environment. Be careful about constantly repeating words that weaken your confidence. Pay attention to what you consume, the conversations you repeatedly have, and the environments that influence your expectations. Surround yourself, when possible, with ideas and people that encourage growth without demanding perfection. Give yourself moments of silence where you can hear your own thoughts. Write down your goals, reflect on your progress, celebrate small improvements. These practices help you build evidence that you are capable of changing, learning, and continuing. Most importantly, understand that your journey does not need to be dramatic to be meaningful. Sometimes manifestation looks less like a miracle appearing overnight and more like becoming the person who finally notices an opportunity, makes a courageous decision, leaves an unhealthy pattern, develops a valuable skill, or refuses to return to an old identity. The external changes may come gradually, but the internal shift begins the moment you decide to remain consistent. So trust the process of becoming. Stay committed when motivation fades. Return to your vision when doubt becomes loud. Align your actions with the future you want to create. Do what you can today, release what you cannot control, and stop demanding that every step reveal the entire journey. You do not need to have everything figured out. You simply need to keep moving with intention. Trust yourself enough to continue, remain consistent enough to grow, and stay aligned enough to recognize the life you are slowly and powerfully building.